What's up guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about this new Too Faced palette. This is the Gingerbread Extra Spicy, and I was in Sephora earlier in the week and I was definitely not planning on getting this when I saw the pictures of it online. I don't know why brands do this, but for some reason the colors I think they just crank up the saturation and it makes the colors look completely different online than they did in person. So when I saw the pictures of this online, to me it just looked overly warm, and it is a warm palette, don't get me wrong, but the colors just looked a little too warm for my taste and just like a little too deep overall and just not something that I was really drawn to. But then when I was at Sephora, they were actually putting out the display for this and all the other Too Faced holiday stuff, and I had to kind of walk around the store a little bit because I really wanted to see it in person. So I kind of was waiting for that person to be done. They hadn't put the tester out yet, and then I looked and saw that they were gone. I went over there and I was like, okay, this is actually really beautiful. I swatched a couple shades and put it right in my basket because it's one of those things where if you see it in person, you like it a lot more than when you see it online. So I'm definitely gonna compare it to the original Gingerbread Spice palette because I know you guys probably have questions about, if there's any shade overlap or anything like that. I'm also gonna show you 3 kind of warm and toasty looks that I made with this palette and just give you my general opinion and which one I like better. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So before we dive into the comparison and looks, just a little bit of quick info on this palette, some close-ups and swatches. So the palette looks exactly the same or almost exactly the same as the original. It has 2 gingerbread people on it instead of 1, but same exact kind of tin packaging. It's $49 for 18 shades, just like the original. And then inside you have the 2 gingerbread people on either side of the mirror. And then here's what the palette looks like. I'll go ahead and show you a close-up. And as you can see, it definitely is a warm tone palette, but it's not quite as red-orange as they made it out to be. There's a lot of neutrals in here. There's dusty pink, there's a rose gold shimmer, there's even like this midnight blue with sparkle in it. It's so pretty. Here's a look at some swatches. I think the formula is pretty much exactly like the original, maybe even a little bit better, like a little smoother going on. Especially when I swatched them side by side, I realized that this one definitely has more smoothness to it, but I don't know if that's because this one's brand new and my other one's a year old and maybe it's starting to dry up a little bit. I don't know if powder shadows do that, but I can definitely attest, having used this now 4 or 5 times, that the formula is fantastic on this. It's so blendable. Despite being really pigmented, they're very, very easy to work with, and that's one reason why I love Too Faced's formula so much. I mean, love them or hate them as a brand, they make a really good eyeshadow. So let's go ahead now and dive into a comparison between these 2 palettes so you can figure out, if you have the original one already, whether this one's worth spending your money on, or if you don't have either one and you're trying to decide which one you'll like better, maybe this will help you out a little bit. So I'm going to show you a close-up of the 2 palettes side by side, and you can see that the original one does have those warmer spicy tones, but it also has some brighter pops of color. You have a bright hot pink shade in there, you have a brighter orange shade, you have a matte plummy purple, you have a bright gold, you also have like an olivey green shade. While the new one, I feel like it's a little bit more cohesive as a palette. All of the shades are kind of those warm and spicy tones, and there's no real bright pops of color, and I think that's what really surprised me about this palette, is that it's called Extra Spicy, so I was expecting it to be, I don't know, just kind of like more bold and bright than the original, and it's really not. It's actually more muted. And the oranges and browns and golds that are in here are actually almost more on the earthy tone side than the brighter ones that you find in the original palette. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And funny enough, as much as I actually adore the original, and I showed this in my top 10 fall palettes video, I'm almost liking this one a little bit better. Granted, I've only had it a short time, so maybe it's just the newness of it, but when I look at this palette, it's so much easier for me to think about looks to put together because all the shades are kind of in the same tone family and they all work really well with each other. Whereas with this one, it's sometimes hard to figure out like what to do with the hot pink or what to do with the purples, or what shade am I gonna put with this green? Whereas with this one, I feel like you can mix any shades together and it would look fine. So that's just kind of some thoughts that I have between these 2 palettes. I think this one overall has more of like a warmer, peachier, more muted vibe to it. This one definitely has those spicy tones, but also with some brighter pops of color. So next, I just want to quickly show you some side-by-side comparison swatches because it's a little bit more helpful, I feel like, than just looking at the 2 palettes side by side. So first I'll show you on the left-hand side of the screen, we have the original Gingerbread Spice palette, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, we have the new one. And I feel like this way you can just get a really good sense of the differences between these two palettes and whether or not there are similar shades. And actually, why don't we go ahead and just break up the comparison swatches into the matte shades and the shimmers, so that way we can really figure out if there are any overlapping shades. So let's go ahead and look at the shimmer shades first. And you have the original Gingerbread Spice on the top row, and then the bottom row of swatches is the Extra Spicy. And the original one does have one additional shimmer shade, while the new one has one additional matte shade. So just looking at these shimmers here, I really don't see any overlap between them at all. The original one, you have that bright white shimmer and also more of like a yellowy gold light shimmer. You have that bright yellow gold, the purple, the green, kind of that reddish tone. Whereas the ones on the bottom are really all, again, just kind of more subtle warm tone neutrals. And then you have that one kind of pop of the midnight blue at the end. But I really don't see any overlap as far as the shimmer shades go. And then when it comes to the mattes, again, we have the original Gingerbread Spice on the top row and then the new one on the bottom, which has one additional matte shade. There's actually a lot more similarity between the mattes. On the lighter end of the spectrum to the right-hand side of your screen, the two ivory shades are really, really close. The other lighter shades, not so much. I think the newer one has more kind of a peachy tone to it, while the older one has more pinks. And then when it comes to the bright orange and bright pink in the original palette, the ones underneath in the newer one are just like more subtle versions of those. You still have like the orangey one and the reddish one, but they're just not quite as bright. And then moving down the line, you have the purple in the original. You don't have a purple in the new one at all. And then the rest of them are just kind of warm neutrals that don't really overlap 100%. I feel like that really dark brown matte is the one that's the most similar between the two palettes. But again, there's not any real shade overlap in these palettes. I think everything, even if it's close, it has a slightly different undertone to it, with the newer one being more orangey, more peachy, and then the older one being kind of more on the pinky side. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into the 3 looks that I did with the new palette, just to give you guys some ideas and what it looks like on the eyes if you are thinking about purchasing it. And like I said, I had such a good time choosing these shades and working with this palette. I just thought it was so much fun. It's just really fall-like, and I'm loving the way that the looks come out so far. So let's start with the first look, and I started with the shade Plenty of Dough, and I put this one all over my lid and blended it all the way up above my crease. And then I went in with the shade Soft and Sweet, which is a matte, soft, pinky brown, and I used this directly in my crease just to deepen it up. Then I applied the shade Drizzle It, which is a burnt rose gold, all over my eyelid. And then the last shade I used was Cinnamon. Love these names. And I put this one just to deepen my outer corner. Oh, and I also used the shade Lick the Spoon in my inner corner and kind of just blended that out a little bit onto the lid. So here's what it looked like on the eyes, and I love this look so much. This one might be my favorite of all 3, just because I love rose gold, but this one's more of like a toasty rose gold. It's just really warm and fall-like, and I just love it. All right, so moving on to the second look, I started out with the shade Butterscotch. And this one is a matte mustardy yellow. I put this one all over my lid again and then blended it up just above my crease. Next, I used the shade Cookie Call in my outer corner. This one's that deep matte mahogany brown. And then on my lid, I used the shade Half Baked, which is a mustard brown metallic. So it paired perfectly with that butterscotch shade. And here's the final look. This one is also really beautiful if you like kind of more of that neutral look, but I also really love the gold in this palette so much. It's not as bright of a gold as the one in the original. I just love the burnt gold. It's just a little bit more subtle, and I love the way this one came out as well. All right, so for my third and final look, I started out with the shade For the Gram, which is that matte peachy brown shade. And I applied that again all over my lid right up to my crease and just blended that out. Next, I used the shade Extra Spicy. I was really dying to use this more orangey tone, so I put this one on the outer third of my eye. So I started at the outer corner and just worked back towards the center. And then for the rest of my lid, from the inner corner back to the middle, I used the shade Candy Queen, which is a yellow brown with golden pearl. And this one is more of a true gold than the one that I used in the first look. So here's the final eye look, and I love how rich and toasty it is, and the orange actually, once you blend it out, doesn't even look as bright as it did in the pan. You could probably build it up and make it look a little bit bolder, but you guys know me, I like a little bit more subtlety in my looks, so I like that it kind of blended out and didn't look quite so vibrant on the eyes. All right guys, final thoughts. I like this one a lot more than I thought I was going to. I've pretty much done a complete 180 on it since I originally saw it on Trend Mood and on the Sephora website. Just seeing it in person, using it a bunch of times, I've just fallen in love with this palette for fall. And I know, like I said, I just did a whole video on my top 10 fall palettes. This one would have definitely made it in if I had owned it at the time, because I think I even like it more than the original, honestly. So if you have a lot of warm tones in your collection, do you need this? Probably not. But then again, if you love warm tones and you want to treat yourself to a new palette and you want something kind of festive and fall-like, I don't think you'll be disappointed in this one at all. Formula's awesome. And I just think the color story is so cohesive, which makes it so much fun and so easy to use. So definitely would recommend it. I think it's awesome. All right, guys, so that's everything. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, are you planning to pick this up? Did I change your mind on it? Or have you just decided you don't need it? Let me know down below. I always love chatting with you guys. Also, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And then also, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel as well. I'm hoping to reach 50K subscribers by October 4th, which is really soon, but that's my 2-year anniversary here on YouTube. That was kind of a little goal of mine, to reach 50K. So if you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you here as part of my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.